Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to explore high school graduation requirements.
Ooh. Okay.
But, and here's the twist,
Yeah.
what if students taking a little longer to graduate actually set them up for greater success later on?
Yeah.
Down the road.
That's really interesting, especially because I think most people are so used to that 4-year track.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And that's kind of what we're going to dig into today. Our source material is actually a blog post.
Okay.
It's summarizing some insights from Dr. Howie Knoff.
Ooh.
He's from Project Achieve Educational Solutions, and he really dives deep into this idea of going backward to go forward.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And catchy. He even has this compelling story about a student named Sarah who struggled with math all throughout high school.
Oh, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And because of her difficulties with math, she was really falling behind in other subjects too.
Yeah, it's all cumulative, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And she felt super discouraged, and she started to even think about dropping out altogether.
Oh, that's so sad. That's really sad to hear.
It is sad, and sadly, Sarah's story is not unique at all.
Right.
And Dr. Knopf actually argues that pushing all students to graduate in 4 years, regardless of their individual needs, might be doing more harm than good.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, especially for students who are already facing challenges or who need that extra support to master those certain skills,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So Dr. Knopf, he suggests this solution that he calls recoring the core.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially, what he's proposing is that students like Sarah should be able to enroll in these intensive intervention courses to address their skill gaps.
Okay.
Even if it means that it takes them longer to graduate.
Yeah.
It's kind of similar to what we already do for students with disabilities who can receive those extended services until they're 21.
Right.
Or even for high-achieving students who might graduate early.
Yeah, they have dual enrollment and all that stuff.
Exactly, yeah. So why not offer that same flexibility to students who just need a little extra support to catch up? Great.
Yeah, it seems to make sense if it's already working in those other areas.
Yeah, especially when you consider the alternative.
Which is?
Often, those students just end up in remedial courses in college.
Oh, right.
And it's like their first year of college ends up being a 5th year of high school, but
at a much higher cost.
at a much higher cost.
Wow.
And so Dr. Knopf points out that this rush to graduate mentality is partly a legacy of No Child Left Behind.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Even though that law was actually replaced back in 2015, a lot of states still tie school funding and accreditation to a strict 4-year graduation rate.
Which puts so much pressure on schools, right?
It does.
Yeah.
It creates this pressure cooker environment for those schools.
Yeah, like just churn them out, churn them out.
Yeah, get them out of here, whether they're ready or not.
Right, exactly.
So how do we even begin to break free from this outdated mindset? Dr. Knopf argues that we need to foster what he calls a culture of professionalism in schools.
Okay.
I like that phrase, but honestly, I'm a little fuzzy on what that actually looks like.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. What does that actually mean in practice?
Yeah, in reality.
Yeah. How do we...
What does it look like in the classroom?
Mm.
Well, imagine a school where teachers are actually treated like the experts that they are.
Oh, interesting.
Trusted to make decisions about what's best for their students.
So it's not just following mandates from the top down.
Right, exactly.
Hmm.
In a culture of professionalism, teachers would have the autonomy to tailor instruction to their students' needs.
So they can try new approaches.
Exactly, and create learning experiences that actually meet the needs of each student.
That sounds ideal, but isn't there a risk that if you give teachers complete freedom, it could lead to inconsistencies or even lower standards? How do we balance autonomy with accountability? That's a great question. It's not about giving teachers free rein with zero oversight.
Yeah.
It's about creating this system of support and collaboration
Okay.
where teachers have access to high-quality professional development,
Okay.
encouraged to share best practices, and where they're held accountable for student outcomes, but in a meaningful and fair way.
So instead of just looking at standardized test scores, we'd be evaluating schools based on a broader range of factors like student engagement or critical thinking skills.
Exactly. Things like preparedness for college and careers.
Yeah, I like that.
It's about recognizing that success has so many facets.
Yeah.
It can't be captured by just one single metric.
I can see how that would create a more holistic and student-centered approach,
Right.
but shifting an entire system,
Yeah,
that's a massive undertaking.
it is a big one.
Are there any real-world examples of this culture of professionalism in action?
Absolutely. Dr. Knopf actually highlights a few schools and districts that have successfully implemented this approach, and the results are really amazing.
Oh, wow.
Higher graduation rates, increased student engagement,
Hmm.
even improvements in teacher morale and retention.
That's awesome. That's really encouraging.
And these schools aren't just like in affluent areas with
Right.
tons of resources. They're in diverse communities across the country, proving that this approach can work in a variety of settings.
So we have these schools showing us that it can work.
Yeah.
But how do we scale that to a whole state or even the nation? That seems like such a daunting task.
It is a big challenge. But Dr. Knopf points to a few states that are making progress. States like Alaska, Arkansas, Connecticut, Delaware, and New Mexico.
And they're all kind of working with these tiered models.
Right. They've adopted these more flexible, tiered graduation models.
So instead of that traditional four-year track, these models offer multiple pathways to a diploma.
Exactly. Think about it this way.
Okay.
If you have a student who is passionate about robotics but really struggling in algebra,
Okay.
in a tiered model, they could spend an extra semester mastering algebra while still taking those robotics courses.
So they're not held back just because they're struggling in one area.
Right. They get the support they need in algebra, but they can still pursue their passions.
Yeah.
And they still graduate with the skills that they need.
And Dr. Knopf argues that these tiered models are really just a better reflection of the real world,
They are.
where success isn't always linear
Right.
and people learn and progress at different paces.
Exactly. And by offering more flexibility, we can create a system that's more equitable and responsive to the needs of individual students.
That's great. But even with these promising models, are there still obstacles?
Of course.
Yeah, what kind of obstacles?
Well, Dr. Knopf actually shares this anecdote about a high school principal he talked to on a Zoom call.
Oh, wow.
And the principal was totally torn between wanting to do what was best for his students, but also fearing the negative consequences for his school if they didn't graduate enough students within 4 years.
So even if he believes in this more flexible approach,
Yeah,
he's trapped in a system that punishes schools for not hitting that mark.
exactly. And that's why systemic change is so crucial. We need to shift the focus away from these narrow metrics
Yeah.
and create policies that support a more holistic view of student success.
That means not just changing the rules, but changing the whole culture, right?
It does.
We need to create an environment where educators feel empowered
Yeah,
to make the best decisions for their students.
absolutely.
And they're supported, not punished, for trying innovative approaches.
Exactly. That's exactly what Dr. Knopf is advocating for. It's a fundamental shift in how we think about education, away from standardization and control towards flexibility, personalization, and trust.
It's a huge ask, but honestly, I can't help but feel optimistic after hearing about these schools and states that are moving in this direction.
Me too, me too.
It shows that change is possible.
Absolutely.
And it gives me hope that we can create a system that actually serves every student.
I agree. And that's where we'll pick up in part 2. We'll take a closer look at how these models are playing out in the real world and what we can learn from their successes and challenges.
Sounds good to me. Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive on rethinking high school graduation.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So before the break, we were talking about those tiered graduation models and how some states are using them to give students more flexibility.
Right. And it's not just about like giving kids more time.
Yeah.
It's designed to offer different paths to a diploma, recognizing that not everyone learns at the same pace or excels in the same way.
Yeah, it's like acknowledging that life doesn't hand you a standardized test and say,
All right.
you have 4 years, go.
Exactly.
So tell me, are these tiered models actually leading to better outcomes for students?
That's the exciting part.
Okay.
Early research is already suggesting that these models can lead to higher graduation rates,
That makes sense.
especially for students who may have struggled in a traditional system. If you feel supported and you have the time to master essential skills,
Yeah.
you're more likely to stick with it and succeed.
It's like building a strong foundation before you start adding all the fancy stuff.
Exactly.
Okay.
But it goes beyond just the numbers.
Okay.
It's also having a positive impact on student engagement, motivation, and even their well-being.
It's really about creating that learning environment where they feel like they belong,
Yeah,
where they're supported.
absolutely.
That's powerful stuff.
It is.
So can you give me some specific examples?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Remember those states we mentioned? Alaska, Arkansas, Connecticut?
Yeah, Delaware, New Mexico.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those states are seeing some real success stories.
Give me some of these stories.
Okay, so in Connecticut, they implemented this model a few years ago,
Okay.
and they've already seen a huge decrease in the number of students dropping out of high school.
Wow, that's amazing.
Plus, more students are graduating college ready
Okay.
and enrolling in post-secondary education.
So it's really about preparing students for what comes next,
Exactly.
whether that's college or a career or just, life.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And Arkansas has seen a similar trend, but they're not just focused on academics.
Okay.
They're incorporating career and technical education as well,
That's so important.
recognizing that not all students are going to go to a four-year college.
Right. We need to broaden that definition of success
Absolutely.
and recognize that there are lots of ways to live a good life.
Exactly. And these models are allowing students to explore their interests,
Yeah.
develop valuable skills,
Yeah.
and just discover their talents.
But I imagine that trying to shift a whole system
Oh, yeah.
is not easy.
Yeah, it's a big one.
So beyond these models themselves, what are some of the other ingredients we need
Yeah.
to make this approach work?
Well, it comes back to that culture of professionalism we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's about trusting teachers to make the right decisions.
But that requires trust from parents and the community too.
You're right. It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
Building trust is essential.
Okay.
Schools need to be transparent
Okay.
about their goals and methods,
Okay.
and they need to involve parents in the decision-making process.
So it's all about collaboration,
Yeah.
communication,
Right.
and a shared commitment to these kids.
Exactly. But it also requires providing teachers with the support they need. We
Right.
can't just give them responsibility without the tools to be successful.
So we have to invest in them.
Absolutely, both financially and professionally,
Yeah.
if we expect them to make this happen.
And that investment needs to extend to the students as well.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to give them those wraparound services, right?
Everything they need to thrive.
Counseling, tutoring, mentorship.
It's about creating a support system that addresses their academic needs, their social needs, and their mental health.
So how do we move beyond these standardized approaches
Yeah.
and create a system that truly honors the individuality of each student?
Well, we need to rethink how we assess students.
Okay.
Instead of relying just on tests,
Yeah.
we should use things like portfolios, presentations, projects,
Yeah.
things that showcase their actual skills and knowledge.
It's like judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree.
Exactly. We need assessments that align with the goals we have for students
Right. Yeah.
and the skills we want them to develop.
And it's not just about what we assess, but how we assess, right?
Absolutely. We need to move away from those high-stakes exams
Yeah.
that just cause anxiety and pressure.
Right. Those one and done kind of things.
Yeah, towards more authentic assessments that
Good.
are part of the learning process.
So instead of tests that feel like a punishment,
Exactly.
it's a tool for learning and growth.
Right.
Okay, I like that.
And this shift in assessment needs to go hand in hand with a change in how we grade students.
Okay.
Instead of just focusing on letter grades,
Yeah.
we should provide more feedback that highlights strengths and areas for improvement.
So it's moving beyond those AF labels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Providing students with information that helps them grow.
And this feedback shouldn't just be from teachers,
Right?
right? It should come from peers, mentors, even themselves.
We need a culture of feedback and reflection
Yeah.
where students are involved in their learning process.
It's about taking ownership of their education.
Exactly. And this brings us to a really important point that Dr. Knopf makes.
Okay.
He says we need to stop asking, did you graduate on time?
Okay.
And start asking, are you truly prepared?
Yeah. What a shift.
It is.
It's recognizing that a diploma is just a piece of paper.
It is.
It's what they know and how they can use it
Right, exactly.
to actually thrive.
To thrive.
That's what matters.
And to thrive, students need more than just academics.
Yeah.
They need critical thinking skills, problem solving, communication, collaborations.
the stuff employers want.
Exactly.
Just things they need to, be an adult.
It's about preparing them not just for their first job, but for a lifetime of learning.
I like that.
Right. Learning, adaptation, and growth.
That's what it's all about.
And that requires a fundamental shift in how we think about education.
Okay.
It's moving away from memorization and standardized tests towards a more holistic approach
Yeah.
that fosters creativity, innovation, and a love of learning.
I love that.
That's where we'll pick up in part 3. We'll explore some strategies for putting these ideas into action and how we can all be a part of making this change.
Looking forward to it. We'll see you after the break. Welcome back to our deep dive on rethinking high school graduation.
It's been a good one.
It has. We've covered a lot from those limitations of the traditional four-year track
Yeah.
to the potential of those more flexible tiered models.
Right.
So now the big question, what can we actually do to make this vision of a better education system a reality?
It's a big question. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, but
Yeah.
I really think change starts with each of us.
Okay.
Even
Yeah.
small things can make a difference.
So where do we begin? What are some of those concrete steps?
One of the most powerful things is just talking about it. Talk to your family and friends, your neighbors.
Yeah.
Share what you've learned about the need for change.
It's about raising awareness, right?
Exactly. Get people thinking about those assumptions we've had about education for so long.
And sharing your own story can be really powerful too.
Oh, absolutely. Share your experiences, the good and the bad.
Yeah.
Help people see how this stuff plays out in real life.
Yeah, personal stories can really make these abstract concepts more real.
Right.
So we've got those conversations going. Then what?
Then we take it a step further. We engage with our elected officials.
Okay.
Let them know you support policies that empower teachers
Okay.
and give students the time and support they need.
Love that. Making our voices heard.
Yeah.
And you don't have to be a policy expert.
Right. Just share your concerns, your hopes,
So-
your vision for what education could be.
So we've got those conversations. We're advocating.
Uh-huh.
What else?
We can get involved locally.
Right.
Volunteer at a school, mentor a student.
Oh, mentorship is so important.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment.
Right.
Even just a little bit can make a world of difference.
It's the relationship, the encouragement.
It really is.
Yeah.
If you have a specific skill, you could even tutor students or lead an after-school program.
Okay.
Think about what you're good at and how you can share that.
What about supporting teachers?
Yes. They need our support so much.
Yeah.
Let your child's teacher know you appreciate them.
Okay.
Write them a note, attend school events,
Yeah.
advocate for policies that give them the resources they need.
We could even donate to organizations that help with teacher training.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All of those things are so valuable. And remember, change takes time.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
We have to be persistent.
We do.
Yeah. Stay informed and keep believing that we can create a better future.
And remember, education isn't just the responsibility of schools and teachers.
Right.
It's all of us.
It's a shared responsibility.
It is.
If we want a society where every kid has a chance, we all have to be invested.
I agree.
That brings us back to that big question. Are you prepared for what comes next?
That's a good one.
It's a question we should all ask, not just about education, but about life too.
It's about being lifelong learners.
Yeah.
Constantly learning, challenging ourselves, adapting.
And recognizing that true success isn't about reaching some destination.
Right.
It's about the journey and who we become along the way.
Well said.
And that brings us to the end of our deep dive. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for listening.
We hope you'll continue to think about these ideas.
And the role you can play in creating a better system for all students.
Remember, even small actions can make a difference. Let's all be part of the solution.